King Pribislav, 812 to 850. As much as Ptolemy was famous for his charity and high values, his son Pribislav was famous for his vices and debauchery. That king did not take care of the state or the people at all, so there was disorder and rebellion in Serbia. The biggest uprising was in Bosnia, where the people rebelled, led by their Ban. King Pribislav came with the army to Bosnia to quell the rebellion. As soon as he arrived, his army disobeyed him, and there the king was killed in 815. King Krepimir, 815 to 840. Pribislav was succeeded by his son Krepimir, who was complete opposite of his father. He was one of the greatest rulers of the Ostrivojević dynasty. When he came to the throne of Serbia, he fought disorder and disarray throughout the country. It took him several years to bring order and reorganize the civil service. He then suppressed Fruška Empire from the Serbian lands and destroyed the territorial integrity of Serbia. After the death of Šarmanjan in 814, his great empire split and began to weaken deeply. Although the Roman Church worked with all its might to maintain this empire, which it had proclaimed its Holy Roman German Empire, it still experienced a fate we have often seen in history, and that is that quickly created empires do not survive their creator. The illiterate Šarmanjan created this empire on his sword, not knowing how to organize and preserve the conquered lands at the time when his sword disappears. During the riots in Serbia, while King Pribislav, the prefect of Nin, Borna, was on the throne, 810 to 821, began in 813 to work with him to become the independent ruler of his parish. Borna had not yet been baptized. Nin was a town where the majority of the population were Croats. In several other small parishes in Liburnia, there were Croats who lived more or less mixed with Serbs. Before Borna, we know the following Nin prefects: Timotije, Guduskan, and Visheslav. Timotije was a Serb, Guduskan was Croat, and Visheslav was a Serb and a Christian. Nin was the main Croatian parish in Dalmatia, and we can see Serbs and Croats, Christians and non-Christians, took turns in the position of prefect. Visheslav was somewhat better known, while we know only as much about Timothy and Guduskan that they existed. When new conflicts between Serbs and Frug began in 819, Borna went to Fruškan Emperor Ludwig the Pious in Aachen with a request to accept him as his vassal. Since Ludwig was far away and his parish in Serbia, Borna thought that Ludwig's influence on him would be null and void, and on the other hand that under his protection he would become an independent ruler. Knowing that Ludwig was very attached to Christianity, Borna agreed to be baptized and to convert his Croats to Christianity. For this job, Borna asked for priests from Rome and not from Split. The Pope sent a bishop who baptized Borna and his close associates. Croats from Nin parish then converted to Christianity, but those from other parishes refused to do so. There were Croats in 11 parishes in Dalmatia at that time. Emperor Ludwig accepted Borna as his vassal and recognized him as a county prefect with right of inheritance. Borna then built the first Croatian church in Nin, dedicated to the Fruška Saint Asel. And at that time, the Pope appointed a bishop for the Croats, and that was the beginning of the Church of Croats in Kingdom of Serbia. The successor of the prefect Vojnimir in Sisak was a prefect Ljudevit, who, like his predecessor, was a vassal of Fruška. The weakening of the Fruškan Empire and estranging of Serbia encouraged Ljudevit to break up with Frujans. Ljudevit was a Serb, and Sisak was an old Serbian city and a strong Serbian stronghold during the Roman conquests. The wider area of Sisak was also inhabited by Serbs. In the north and northwest of them were Croats at that time, but they were not subordinated to the prefect Ljudevit, but had their own masters. In 890, Ljudevit cancelled Frisian vassalship, and since Serbia was behind Ljudevit, it has provoked a new Serbo-Frisian war. Ljudevit was joined by Serbs from western Slavonia, today's Croatia and Slovenia, all the way to the Socha river. The Frisian army was led by Macro Count Kadalo, and the battles took place somewhere in the area of today's Slovenia. In that battle, Ljudevit defeated Kadal, and another Frisian army came against Ljudevit under Deretic, and the battle was fought again on territory of today's Slovenia. It ended in a draw. Neither side could boast of a victory. Then the Frisian vassal, the prefect Borna, went with his army to help Frisians and arrived near Sisak. On his way back from Slovenia, Ljudevit intercepted him and beat him on the river Kupa. Borna had to cancel the Frisian vassalship and recognize the supreme authority of King Krepimir. While the prefect Ljudevit was fighting in Slovenia in 890, King Krepimir liberated Istria from Frisians. The following year, Emperor Ludwig sent 3 armies against Serbs. One of his armies went in the direction of the Istria, another in the direction of Lika to come to aid of Borna, and the third went to the direction of Sisak. With his forces, Ljudevit locked himself in hard cities that the army of Fruška could not conquer, so he withdrew. The other 2 Frisian armies also returned, but we do not know whether they were beaten or withdrew on their own. In any case, the second year of Serbo-Frisian War ended in a sign of Serbian victory. In 821, the Frisian army renewed its attack in Serbia, but again without any success. That year, their friend, the prefect of Borna, disappeared. In the 4th year of the war, a large army of Fruška arrived in Posavina, and the prefect Ljudevit withdrew with his forces to the interior of Serbia, which then had a border on the river Sava. The Frisian timekeeper and contemporary of the event notes that Ljudevit left Sisak and went to the Serbs, who are a great nation and who are in Dalmatia. From this it can be seen that even then the Frisians called Serbia Dalmatia. It was fact, Ljudevit was not far from Sisak, he was somewhere in Bosnia, where King Krepimir gave him the position of prefect to prepare for a new showdown with Frisians. The following year, Ljudevit left Serbia with the army, and after defeating and expelling the Frisian army in 823, he regained Sisak. In the same year, Ljudevit was killed in a raid in Sisak by a certain Ljudomil, a relative of the country of Borna. That Ljudomil, or Ljudemisla, as everyone mentions him, was thought to have been sent by Frisians to kill Ljudevit. The war had been going for 5 years, and then the Frisian army was only defeated. Ljudevit proved to be a very capable military leader, and the Frisians wanted to take revenge on him personally for the defeat. And indeed, after Ljudevit's murder, the Frisian army occupied his land all the way to Sava River. However, they will soon have to withdraw, because in 825 a great uprising of Croats began. The contemporary of the prefect Ljudevit was the Croatian leader Porga, who is also mentioned as Porin or Parga. His Croats were in today's Croatian Zagorje and Podravina. They were under the rule of Frisians, so the Frisians committed all kinds of crimes against them. They captured Croatian children, baked them and gave them to their dogs to eat. Such similar crimes forced Croats to rebel against Frisians and ask for the help from Serbs. Since the Serbs had been at war with the Frisians for 6 years, they supported the Croatian uprising and gave them help they needed. Croatian battles with the Prussians lasted for 7 years, mostly because the Serbs had a great war with Byzantium at that time too, so the Serbian army was busy in that war. Seeing that the Serbs have been at war with the Prussians for several years, Byzantium decided to attack Serbia.